From the Workplace Ninja Summit in Baden. Smart talks, sharp insights, and stories worth sharing. This is the Workplace Ninja Podcast.
Welcome back at a new recording at the Workplace Ninja Summit 2025 in Baden. My name is Frans Houdendorp and I have with me a new co-host. First time, Thomas?
Yes, first time this year, and it's so great to be here, and especially with you both, which are speaker here at our event.
So we have Javier and Pouyan on the table. Javier is from Microsoft. He will introduce himself in a second. And Pouyan, as an independent consultant from the Netherlands, so let's see if we can find out some details on Sentinel DataLake. But first, introduction, Javier.
Of course, hi everyone. So my name is Javier Soriano. I'm a principal PM in the Sentinel team, specifically in a team that is called CXE, which is Customer Experience Engineering. Basically, we work very close with customers, making sure that we get the latest features for them to try, and then we also get the feedback from them so we can incorporate that into the product. So very happy to be here. It's my first time in the Ninja Summit, and I'm really loving it. Thanks.
Yeah. And Pouyan, also for you the first time, isn't it?
Yeah, it's for me also the first time in Switzerland at the Workplace Ninja. So I'm really happy to be here. Also the environment and the organization, you guys are doing really amazing work. I'm
who you are?
Yeah, so I'm Pouyan Khabazi, currently working as an independent consultant. In the past I had my own MSSP provider where we did a lot of work with Sentinel, the whole Microsoft security stack. I've been involved with Microsoft Sentinel, I think, before it went GA or something, and been always trying to figure out the automation side and everything. So my core focus is the cloud security, automation, and XDR side. So I'm glad to be here on the table with you guys.
So we have a partner that use it. We have Microsoft that have built it, and you are collaborating with customers to implement and use it. And I have an expert next to me, so let's throw in some questions, Thomas.
Yeah, for me it was also like one of the biggest announcements a few years back when Microsoft said we also jump into the SIEM space, and you just said it's now a long journey, there was a lot of automation, and just probably first, okay, what's your insight? How do you see how has the product evolved in the past years?
So we started in 2019. So GA was announced in 2019. Back then, we were just a few of us working on it. And Sentinel was born as the first cloud-native SIEM, right? So a way for customers to send their different logs from their company into a log store, right? That they can use to store all those logs and then get all the SIEM features on top of it, right? Like having real-time detections on top of it, having user entity behavior analytics, having dashboarding, having many other things, right? The thing is that SIEMs come with a challenge, right, which is cost, right? At the end, you have huge amounts of logs, right, from many parts of the organization, from your office environment, from your different endpoints, from networking devices, and many others. And in some cases, what happened is that customers were seeing that they were burning the whole budget in some specific data sources, right? So that forced us to evolve the Sentinel landscape, the Sentinel solution, to come with new ways of storing data that are optimal for customers in terms of cost and also in terms of features. And that's when we announced, and I'm going quite fast, but I think you guys are following me. So that's when we announced, in July this year, we announced the public preview of the Microsoft Sentinel DataLake. So it's basically a new, very low-cost ingestion tier that allows customers to store those logs at very low cost, but at the same time get the value of having those logs available. In which ways? In many different ways, right? So for example, you can just query the data interactively in the data lake, right? You can access the regular interfaces that you use to query the data to just get the value from it. And there's a couple more features that I will talk in a second, but I think that probably answers the first question.
Yeah, I think that was one of the... I think that really showed the evolution of Sentinel in the past, but also the combination with XDR. So SIEM XDR story, I think, is something which has a big impact in the past few years, I think now. And I don't know, how have you seen that with customers?
Yeah, so it was funny, I was talking about it the last evening. Once Sentinel was announced, I think most of us were all thinking that XDR will end up in the Sentinel portal, right? Because and one of the first things that we often, like this is 5-6 years ago, were missing is like, can we have the XDR data in Sentinel? Because we want to make the correlation. And for a long time there was no data connector for it. So, but that's now there. So I think it doesn't. I don't think it doesn't matter which portal or which directions it went. But I think the added value is the fact that the portals come together. Because I think a lot of customers were doing data duplication because of that, which added challenges, costs, or other maintenance purposes with it. So having those into one platform, one portal, is added value, definitely when it comes to the point that there is an incident. Because at that point you don't want to be switching in portals. You just want to have one platform where you can do your correlation. You want to have your data, one uniform. I mean, that's always been, in my opinion, the power of Sentinel and Defender. It was always custom language. It was one platform where you could unify query against. So that unified security platform that Sentinel is moving. I think it's also publicly announced that Sentinel portal will be partially or fully, I don't know what the scope is known, be deprecated, and it will be in one platform. I think it is also good for security to be looking to the security environment from one platform. We are seeing the same behavior, of course, with Defender for Cloud as well. So in general, to sum it up, I think it's a logical step that those two worlds are becoming together.
Yeah, for sure, right? Like I just wanted to reinforce the message on why we did this, right? The unification and why it's important. So as Sentinel grew, right, we were getting into different problems, and I'll explain a little bit, right? At the end, the SIEM is not only the source or the place where you put your logs, it's also the place where the analyst, the SOC analyst, has the single pane of glass for all the alerts in the organization, right? So obviously from the XDR side of things, there's a lot of alerts coming, right, from the EDR, from Defender for Cloud Apps, from Defender for Identity, and so on. And also we have the data in XDR, right? So we also had to bring that data from Defender XDR into Sentinel. So at the end, it became a real problem to have synchronization between the two platforms, right? A true problem, right? Like there was delays between the two. When there was a change in one side, you had to replicate the change to the other. It was adding a lot of engineering complexity and overhead, which at the end, I think the right decision was made. Just merge the two of them. The decision was the Defender portal, I think, because of the historical position of MDE and so on. And of course, it came with some issues, right? Like there's adoption issues that we need to fix on how the two portals merge together. But at the end, what Pouyan said, right? Having a single incident where you have the full attack story covering endpoints, identities, cloud apps, email, as well as networking from Sentinel, other clouds, whatever different ISV solution the partner has or the customer has, that's the true value of the unified portal, right? And having a single data store where you have all your data available. So again, it's not perfect. We're still working on the adoption issues that we all know about, but I think that definitely is the right strategic decision.
Yeah, I think that's very good also to hear. And when we now look back in the two last years, I think we sometimes have not seen new things in Sentinel. And now with this big bang this summer, that was very cool to see that this is now coming to life, that we can start using it. Probably you want to talk a little bit more about how we can use it.
Yes, so first of all, come to my session in a few minutes. I'll dive deep into this. But I wanted to focus on a few things, right? First of all, once you onboard your Sentinel into the data lake, what you get is that everything that you ingest into analytics tier, into the main hot tier of Sentinel, gets automatically replicated into the data lake, right? At no cost, right? You don't have to pay for that additional copy of data, right? And then there's a bunch of features that I wanted to mention. First of all, that ability to do interactive queries to the data with no KQL limitations, right? Not sure if you have some experience with Sentinel. In the past, you have the archive tier, which was quite limited in the things that you could do, right? You could only use some KQL commands and so on. That's not the case anymore, right? You can use full KQL to query the data in the data lake. Not only that, but we also have one thing called KQL jobs. It's a new way of interacting with that data in the data lake. Whenever you want to run a query that is, you expect it to run for a long time because it's complex, it's spanning maybe several years of data, it has unions, joins, whatever, you use these KQL jobs, right? Which can run for hours, right? And then return the results to you, again, with no other limitations, right? No language limitations, also very important. Another cool thing about the data lake is that it's built on open format. What does that mean? It's built on Delta Parquet format. So it means that I can run any Spark jobs on top of that data using my Spark notebooks, right? That's not a use case that every customer is able to reach, but for advanced customers, it's definitely something that they were looking for, right? And they were building their own platforms using ADLS, ADX, and things like that. You don't need that anymore with the data lake, right? You have a layer of storage that is Delta Parquet format that you can run your notebooks on top of, right? We have built a VS Code connector, or plugin, that allows you to do that interaction via notebooks. So with those different things together, the new ingestion tier, very low cost. I didn't say the price, but you can look it online. It's there. Very low ingestion tier, new ways to interact with the data with much less limitations than we had before. And then that ability to do Spark jobs on top of the data are the main characteristics of the data lake as of today.
Are there any? The private preview is running. Right? I think it's
public preview already.
Public already. What were the most common use cases that you have faced or that customers implemented first, Pouyan? What are use cases that you're thinking of?
Well, I think one of the use cases, if you look definitely on the Dutch market, what we've seen is that once a customer starts onboarding Sentinel in the past, is one of the big questions is ahead already the pricing, right? Because they want to know so much gigabytes, so much data, what's going to cost at the end. And that often stopped us from really increasing the onboarding of more solutions, right? Because to be honest, I think a lot of customers have running Sentinel, and most of them have like Entra, Office 365, Azure Activity, and maybe some firewalling, and there it stops, unfortunately. And this will give us the possibility, I hope, to increase that and really adopt the SIEM as it, in my opinion, was supposed to be, like having our application data on it, having more detections on it than only on our specific system. So I think hopefully this will increase the adoption of onboarding more solutions, and definitely more towards application solutions. So we are a lot focused on the infrastructure side often, but increasing that and going to looking, our web application, our databases, what's happening there, or our APIs, and crawling through, because there's a lot of interesting use cases that you can find if you onboard a web application, for example. Or what if suddenly there's an escape and a bad actor tries to get access to other users' information or make some certain things. So those logs are there already.
I want to mention one specific use case that one customer that I'm working with is implementing, right, which is networking logs. We all know that networking logs, firewall logs, are very noisy. If you send them to the hot tier, it costs you a ton of money, right? And you want to be able to optimize, but at the same time, don't lose the security value that those logs have, right? Which they do have it, right? So what this customer is doing is that it's splitting the ingestion into two paths, right? One path that is the noisy one goes to the data lake, and the other path that has more security value near real time, it goes to the hot tier, right? So again, they're sending this very verbose side of the traffic into data lake, and what they do is that they run a KQL job periodically, every few hours, I think, to extract the bits that are important for them, right? For example, which IP addresses communicated for the last few hours, on which ports, and how much information they exchange, right? And then they get those results, which is a very summarized version, a very compressed version of the actual logs, and bring them back to the analytics tier. And then there, they can run their detections on top of that data to do, for example, IOC matching and things like that. So that's a perfect use case for the data lake, for example.
For example, what we were talking in our company about is then really extracting, as an example, for ransomware groups. They are using RTP, SMB, and then just extracting these port communication from the beginning to the analytics tier. and that works quite well. If you can split at the beginning the logs,
Exactly.
you then also have to think about, do I filter them out in the data lake tier because I have duplicated data
Right.
otherwise? But that are then the stories where you can start thinking about, but now we have the possibility to have
Exactly.
solutions for it.
Exactly.
And if I listen or view to this this recording, and I'm using Sentinel, what should I do to enable the data lake?
It's easy piece of cake. So first of all, you need to have your Sentinel workspace connected to the Defender portal. Okay, so that unification needs to be a reality in your environment. I'm not going to talk about the unification itself, like how you do it, because we have I think great documentation. We have also several different webinars that we've done to explain the unification and how you do that. But once you have connected that Sentinel workspace to your Defender portal, it's just you go to settings, and then there's a menu that says Data Lake, and you click enable, and you just wait for a few minutes. Normally it takes like 5 minutes or less. And at that point, you will see already the different data lake menus being available to you in the Defender portal. So it's quite easy. You need, of course, the permissions to do that. Like I think you need owner of the subscription to be the owner of the subscription to be able to do it. But besides that, it's quite effortless kind of process.
Yeah, I believe you will even get a banner if you have already onboarded Sentinel into XDR. You will
Yes.
get a banner at the homepage to start onboarding data lake.
Yes. You have, we are competing for banners, right?
Yeah.
Because banner real estate is expensive, right?
Yeah.
So I think right now, if you're a customer that has Sentinel connected, you will get already the data lake banner. Yes.
And on the other hand, if I'm not using Sentinel, I have a legacy theme, so to say, and I hear this. So there is a low-cost data lake, but what should I do to migrate to Sentinel?
So first of all, you need to think about what you need to migrate, right? So in many cases that I've seen migrations happening from customers, you only migrate the content. What does that mean? That you don't migrate the data, right? The data is historical data that is still useful and needs to be used in many cases, but you leave that in the old SIEM, right? In your old infrastructure. And then you move your use cases, right? Your detection rules, your dashboards, your SOAR playbooks if you have any, right? That's what you would migrate, right? The setup of Sentinel, you probably know, it's super easy, right? That's the beauty of SaaS as well, right? You just go to the Azure portal, you create workspace, click, and you're done, right? And also, like ingesting the Microsoft first-party sources is also just clicking a couple of checkboxes and you're done. So that process.
But you do that infrastructure as code, yeah?
Of course. But how else, right?
Clicking in the portal is not allowed. That's okay.
For MSSPs like Pouyan and others, indeed, shouldn't be allowed.
Shouldn't be allowed.
Because it can also cause problems. Also, if you are already using auxiliary logs or other stuff, then yes.
By the way, with question, not sure if we have time to cover that point about auxiliary logs, but I think it's an important one. So we had in the past auxiliary logs, right, until recently, right, and they are still out there, right. You can see the pricing for auxiliary logs in the page and everything. So once you onboard into the data lake, all those auxiliary tables automatically become data lake tables, right, and the pricing, the billing meter that we use in the backend switches from being the auxiliary meter to be the new one data lake meter. Okay, that's important. Not only we do that for the auxiliary meter, we also do it for the archive meter, right? So if you were using archive in the past and you switch to data lake, that archive meter, that archive cost that you saw in your Azure bill, will be switched automatically to data lake storage costs. Okay, so that's important to mention.
Javier was talking about onboarding and what we should do. What are common pitfalls to avoid during onboarding or migration? You have done migrations and implementations a lot.
Yeah, so I think we are at the beginning of the onboarding and the adoption, and I think there's multiple layers if we are talking only about the data lake like storage side, but it's I think more happening than only the data lake, right? Because we are also seeing them shift towards the Defender portal. I think the most challenges in the migration are there, definitely as an MSSP. I think the data lake, if I don't have a lot to comment on that limitations or migrants. I think what Javier said really covers it. If you are already having archive storage, everything, the billing automatically is synced. But I think it's even a higher level if you're migrating to the new Defender portal, also with your detection and your automation. Those are the areas where the challenges really are for the coming period, in my opinion. And so MSPs or big enterprises need to start thinking about how should, I think Microsoft is also working on some migration paths, right? Mm-hmm. Because we have been for the last years doing a lot of automation and or build our processes on the whole RBAC that Azure supported, and now that needs to shift to XDR. So there's a lot of RBAC migration. How are we going to do? In the past, we could, as MSSP, we didn't have like contributor permissions permanently on the customer side. We could do PIM through Lighthouse. So how will that work out in the XDR portal? So I think there are some challenges, but not per se on the data lake side, or you know maybe something, but
not
it's
really.
only on the layer above.
Not really on the data lake. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that on the unification, when you onboard a Sentinel to the Defender portal, there's a couple of things that I think are the ones that customers raise the most, right? So one is correlation, right? When you are in the Sentinel environment, you're very used to having full control of your detections and your alerts, right? So you know that you have defined or configured the grouping of an alert to be a specific way, to do a specific hours of the day, to have a limit in the number of situations in which are correlated, etc. Once you move into the Defender portal, the correlation moves to the Defender XDR correlation engine, right? Which has its own values, as we said, right? It takes care of doing the correlation for you. You don't have to be on top of what needs to be correlated together, right? But some customers find that an issue, right? Because they're used to have a lot of control, and they lose a bit of that control, right? So that part is the one that is the biggest effort for customers to rely on the Defender XDR correlation and obtain the value that brings, as we discussed before.
I think the biggest problem was in this correlation that before you have used in automation and in all of your processes things which now can change, and bringing in these into the automation, that's now the core part which MSSPs and also large enterprise needs to do. But we had before also about XDR. You had a very great session about how it works in XDR, starting with a phishing mail. Would you like to explain a little bit more about this attack and how it worked?
Yeah, so our session is about that a user is phished and the credentials are stolen, and that puts the bad actor in a position to privilege escalates that towards cloud. So this user has only permission to a key vault, for example, but that contains some app registrations and password in it, and from there it starts building its privilege escalation. So and from that moment you disappear actually from the XDR portal. So then you are, where's the logging, right? Because the Entra is in Sentinel. There's if you have Defender for Key Vault, it's in the Defender for Cloud. And a lot of it is coming back to XDR portal now, because also we are seeing if you have connected Defender for Cloud towards Defender XDR, there will be synchronization there, which also will bring this incidents and alerts back to Sentinel portal at this moment. So so actually our purpose is to show the gap, and that there are multiple, well, first of all, how easy it is that it can happen, and that we can have some detections in place for detecting certain patterns, but also how we can try to prevent it, because I think we cannot say we are always 100%, so there will always be a way. So we will also talk a little bit about the zero trust, that we need to have multiple controls like conditional access, PIM, but also detections that a new user is added to global admin, or a global admin user is logging in. So those are more detections and not per se protection. That's, I think, a little bit the score. And so that's bringing it all together, and hopefully in the coming months we will see more and more of this data ending already into the Defender XDR portal by default. Which will hopefully make it also for MSPs and customers to do this kind of correlation much easier.
Great use case.
Yeah. Nice. Any other topics? from your side?
A lot.
Have you, or do
No,
you
no.
have all, done all the questions?
I have a lot of questions now, but I think it's a good sum of everything what we have now talked about. I think it's really great what we have seen, how Microsoft evolved in the past, and getting back a little bit more Sentinel in the communication. That's definitely something what I love to hear. Probably you as well.
Yeah,
But,
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you guys for being here, presenting on stage, and being here on in the interview podcast recording of what we call it. But thank you for joining us.
Of course, thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you're watching, we're up to a security copilot plugin interview, and that's next. And probably Thomas, you will join as well.
Yes.
Maybe.
In that case, yes.
And then we will talk about security copilots. We didn't touch on AI this time, but maybe that's something for next time. Have a look at the next recordings that are coming up. They will be published on our YouTube and our podcast channels. Have a look on that. Follow us on the social media, and let's see what the next one brings. Thank you.
Thanks for joining the Workplace Ninja podcast. Stay curious, stay connected, and keep sharpening your ninja skills. Until next time.